Scalia.
Mm-hmm.
And Terry's from Florida, and she is an experiencer, and she's also part of our monthly group. So I'm very, very excited that Terry's here tonight to share her story and her wisdom and what she's learned about herself and her journey. And so I'm gonna step back now and let you take the floor.
Thanks, Catherine. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my story. It's really nice to be able to talk about one's experiences, because it just makes you feel like, I don't know, it just makes you feel good to be able to talk about, you know, what's happened to you, and especially with people that understand and are not judging.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and I actually had a ET experiencer / abduction meetup group for 5 years. I closed it down in 2019 just because it just got to be a little bit too much for me. At the time, I was going through some personal stuff, and but it was a really, really good experience having that. I had quite a few members, and we would meet up once a month, and I only allowed experiencers to join the group just because I wanted them to be able to have a forum where they could talk to other experiencers and share their stories without, you know, being judged. That's always a really big thing for people who are new to sharing their story and feeling comfortable sharing their story, because although times have gotten better with the acceptance and the stigma attached to these types of things, still there are people out there that don't understand, and you know, so it just makes people feel better to be able to talk and not be judged. So anyway, my story, I was born into a military family. My dad was in the Air Force, and we traveled all around the world, and we lived at different Air Force bases. And if you've done a lot of research on this type of thing, you know, there's a lot of Air Force bases, especially you'll hear stories from people who were assigned to SAC, which is the Strategic Air Command for the Air Force, and he was tied to SAC in every base that we were assigned to. So he had a job that was secret. He always worked in a building with no windows, and he couldn't talk about his job and all of that stuff. So I to this day I don't really understand what my dad did. He's no longer with us, so I can't ask him, but anyway, so a lot of people who have had UFO experiences are tied to the military somehow. So I don't know if you guys have found that to be true or not, but in my research, I have found that to be true. So I don't have a lot of memories of when I was a child. It's very sporadic memories. So there's a lot of gap. There's big gaps there where I don't really remember too much. But I do remember that I never felt like I fit in anywhere, and I still feel that way. And we all do, right? All of us experiencers, we feel like we don't fit in here. What is this place? This doesn't feel like home. I want to go home. Who are these crazy people? You know, and I have always felt that way, always, even as a small child. I just felt like, you know, a mistake was made, you know, that I shouldn't be here. So growing up, you know, feeling that way is really difficult, as I'm sure most of you know. If you are experiencers, you get that, and it makes life pretty difficult to live, because you don't really, when you're little, you don't really understand why you feel that way. But when I became, let's see, I started in 1980. Let's see, I've got some notes here. So back in, my whole ET experiences started in, let's see, what year? 1980, 81. I was living in California, in San Diego. I was a single mom. I had 2 little girls that were, let's see, my oldest daughter, I think she was between 4 and 5, and then my younger daughter was between 2 and 3. And so we lived by ourselves in this little duplex. And back in those days, I didn't really follow UFO stuff. It wasn't really something that I was really interested in. So when these weird things started happening, I didn't immediately think that it was related to, ETs or any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I thought I had a ghost in my house. Mm-hmm. So weird stuff started happening. The very first thing that happened, which was very, very strange and scared the bejesus out of me, was, back in those days, I don't know if, some of you are probably around my age. I had a really large king size waterbed, and it had the big mirror, and it was up on a pedestal, and and it was one of those mattresses that if you push on it, you're going to go up and down. So I was sleeping in the middle of this king size waterbed, and I woke up because I felt like I was going up and down like waves. Mm-hmm. And so I woke up, but the problem is that I couldn't move. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't speak. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move a toe. I could do nothing. And I had never had that happen to me before. And that was absolutely terrifying. If that's happened to you before, you know what I'm talking about. The very first time that happened, holy crap. So I'm trying to scream. I'm trying to wake myself up. I'm trying to move my body parts. And I don't understand what's pushing on this mattress. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's one of my daughters, but the pedestal was so high that there's no way they could have even gotten on top of my bed and done that. So it took me a minute to figure it out that it wasn't my daughter's. And so now I'm screaming in my head. And so I'm screaming out loud, stop it, like I'm really mad. At first I was terrified, then I got really mad. And so I'm screaming, stop it. And then I heard what sounded like little munchkins from the Wizard of Oz movie. And they were mocking me, and they were saying, stop it. And there was more than one, and I could tell that they were small. And so when I heard that, I'm freaking out all over again. So I think the whole instance maybe lasted not even probably a minute or so, but it seemed like it lasted a really long time. And then all of a sudden, just like somebody flipped a switch, I was able to move, and I jumped up and I pushed my, the blanket off me, and I'm looking around. I'm absolutely terrified. Of course, there's nothing there. So after that happened, then I started waking up in the middle, can't open my eyes, but through my eyelids, I can tell that the room is super bright, like the sun is shining on my face. But I can't move. I can't wake up. I was awake. I was absolutely awake. Mm-hmm. However, I was not able to move. And when I first saw that, I thought, well, it's got to be morning time, but I don't understand why I can't move. And then I'd get mad, and then I'd get scared and go through that whole big thing. And then I'd wake up and my eyes would pop open and I'd be in the pitch black. So that happened multiple times during the same time span. All this that probably went on for about a year or so. And at the same time that all this weird stuff was happening to me, my youngest daughter, who was between 2 and 3 years old, she was having night terrors. Mm. And she was waking up in the middle of the night, and she was screaming, hysterical. And as soon as I'd hear her, I would, as soon as I was able to wake up, I would run to her, and she could never really explain, because she was so little, what it was that was frightening her. And I remember one night, I ran into her room because she was screaming, and she wasn't in her bed, but she was in her closet, and she was trying to claw her way through the wall of the closet, because my bedroom was on the other side. And she was trying to get to me without going through the hallway. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was just, I was terrified for her. I took her to a child psychologist, try to figure out, why is my child acting this? Why is she having these night terrors? I don't understand. Well, nobody could help me. Nobody could give me any answers. And so this went on and on and on and on. The only thing she said to me one time, she said, the dark is in the hall and it's going to get me. And so during this whole time, I'm having these sleep paralysis episodes and all of this really weird stuff going on. And I thought that my house was haunted. And I would sleep with the light on, for multiple nights. And then, once I got comfortable again, then I start sleeping with the light off. But then I had a really terrifying experience. I was sleeping on this waterbed. I was laying on my left side, and in the middle of this king size waterbed, and I had the blanket up around my neck, and I was asleep. And then I woke up because I felt something pushing on the bottom on the foot of the bed. I could feel the blanket pull across my feet. So I woke up, but this time I'm not paralyzed. I can move. When I first felt it, my first thought was it's one of my girls. And I'm not going to get up, because if I get up, she's going to want to go in the kitchen and have food and watch TV. So I just thought, I'm just going to leave her alone. She'll go back to sleep. Well, so then I felt it move, and then it pushed down again, really ever so gently. And I could feel that blanket pulling across my legs. And I'm going, okay, this is weird. So I just laid there, and then it moved again, and it went down to like where the corner of the bed was, and it pushed down, and I felt the blanket pull across my legs. Now I'm getting a little nervous. So I didn't know what to do, and I'm not going to look, right? Because I don't want to see a ghost. I don't want to see a monster. I don't want to see what's in my room, right? So I'm laying there. Now I'm starting to sweat, and my heart's beating really fast, and I'm starting to sweat. Now it's coming up the side of my bed behind me, and I could feel every few inches it would push down on the blanket, and I could feel the blanket pull across my, pull across my stomach, pull across my shoulders. By the time it got to my shoulders, I was drenched in sweat. I was absolutely terrified. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And I'm laying there, and then all of a sudden it reached over and it very gently touched me on my back. I could feel the blanket as I'm going to say she, because I know now it was a female, but pushed on my back, and just ever so gently. And then nothing for several minutes. I probably laid there 10 minutes and nothing else happened. And when I got my courage, I whipped the covers back, and of course there was nothing there. Well, again, I'm thinking it's a ghost. So then things kind of stopped at that point. And then fast forward to 1986, I had gotten remarried. We had another baby. So I had a third daughter, and she was about 7-8 months old. And we were still living in San Diego, but we were living in a different place. And I was married to a military guy, a guy in the Navy. So one night I was sleeping in bed, and I woke up, my eyes popped open, and for whatever reason, I just knew that I had to get up and go outside, because they were coming. They were my family, and I was so excited because they were coming, and I hadn't seen them in a really long time. So I got out of bed, and I went to my baby daughter's bedroom, and I reached down into I don't know why I brought her. To this day, I'm not really clear on why I brought her, but I picked her up out of her bed, out of her crib, and put her on my hip, and I walked out the front door. And we walked to the curb, and I'm standing at the curb, and I'm looking up at the sky, and I could see, if you've ever seen Northern Lights, It was like Northern Lights, but all the colors of the rainbow. And it was just swirling and swirling and swirling. It was so amazingly beautiful. And I knew when I saw that that was them and that they were here. So my next memory, and I don't know how we got here, but my next memory was my next awareness was that we were standing in the middle of an open field, and there were trees all around this clearing. And I look around and I can see other people. I specifically remember an elderly couple, an elderly man and a wife, probably in their 80s. And there were other people there as well, and everybody's in their pajamas, and they're just kind of standing there. And the looks on their faces, it was like they were sleepwalking. It's like they weren't really fully awake. And so I was just looking at them, and I don't really remember being, wondering who they are or why they were there. I just remember feeling, oh my God, my family's here. My family's coming. My family's coming. So then I look off to the distance and I see a spaceship. This is just your typical looking, with a saucer type thing with the dome on the top. And it was probably, I don't know, 50 feet or so away from where we were standing. I'm not good at measurements. So anyway, so as soon as I noticed the spaceship, everybody else noticed it too. And we all started walking towards the spaceship. And as I got closer, I could see that there was a being standing on the outside of the ship. And it was a very tall, it was a she, I know it was a she. She was very tall. She was probably seven-ish feet. She had long white hair. She was humanoid. She had like white robes kind of things, like robish things, and all the way to the ground. And as I'm getting closer to her, I start feeling this very, very powerful sense of unconditional love. And the closer I got to her, oh my God, it just became so overwhelming. Like, I kind of equate it to, imagine, the love you have for your child and multiply it by 20, or 40. It was so incredibly powerful. There are absolutely no words to describe what this felt like. And the closer I got, the stronger it got. When I got up closer to her, you know how you can watch, if there's if you're watching the news and they're showing like this film clip of something and they're showing somebody, but they don't want you to see their face and they kind of blur their face out. Mm-hmm. Well, when I was having the experience, when I was looking, okay, let me rephrase that. So when the next morning, when I was remembering my experience, I couldn't see her face. I'm pretty confident that when I was actually going through the experience, I could see her face. But when I remembered it, it was like somebody had blurred her face out. It was really weird. And she had, I also noticed her hands. She had regular hands, and I do believe she had 5 fingers, but I'm not exactly sure. However, the fingers were a lot longer than our hands. So they were very slim, and the fingers were a lot longer. And so anyway, we all got up to the spaceship, and she's standing there. She never said a word. She didn't move a muscle. She was just standing there. So we all started to file into this spaceship. We all went on board, and I remember when I walked inside, I'm looking around. I could see the walls. I could see, off to my left, there was like where you might fly the spaceship, and then off to the right, there was a hallway, and it was pretty skinny hallway, and there was very little lighting in there, and I don't really even know where the lighting was coming from, because I don't really remember seeing light, but it was lit enough so that you could tell where you were walking. So we started walking down this hallway, and we got to, on the right, there was a door, and it had a round archway. It wasn't a door that you could open or close. It was just an open door that had a round archway. and everybody started filing into this room. And when I got into the room was completely round, and it had nothing on the walls, but at the bottom, it had like a bench seating that stuck out around the wall. And so that somebody could sit there, and it was all one piece. It was not like, it wasn't like, I didn't see nails, I didn't see screws or bolts or anything like that. It was all one solid piece. And in the middle of the room, on a pedestal, looked like a quartz crystal, and it was, I don't know, maybe 3 feet tall, and it was fairly wide. It was maybe 3 feet tall, and it was sitting on this pedestal. So anyway, I went around the crystal, and then I found a spot, and I sat down, and I put my daughter in my lap, and I'm looking at the door, and I'm watching the other people come in, and they come in, and they find a seat, and they sit down. And then all of a sudden I thought about my husband that I had left laying in bed, and I became really scared, because my thought was, oh my God, if he wakes up and we're gone, he is going to freak out. Hardly did I even get that thought out of my, through my head, when the being was now standing in the doorway, and she said to me telepathically, she said, "Do not worry, he will be fine." And as soon as she said that with her voice, I was, all right, I'm good, let's go. So I don't know, I don't have a memory of where we went or what we did. All I can tell you is that I figured out later that what they did to all of us there, what they did to me, probably what they did to my daughter, was what they called jump start. So they jump started me. They woke me up so that I could start having these spiritual experiences. Because as soon, so anyway, let me just finish the story. So anyway, once she told me that he was going to be fine and I was okay, let's go do whatever we're going to do. And then my next memory was waking up in my bed the next day. And I can't even, okay, so like I said, this was not even a topic that I was even interested in at the time. So when I woke up and remembered what had happened, I was in total, utter shock. I didn't even know what to do with that information. I didn't know who to tell. I thought, to be honest with you, I thought, I don't know, am I crazy? Did I completely lose it? I don't know. I was really questioning, my sanity at that point. So I'm like, who am I going to tell? Who's going to believe me? But at the same time, I was so excited because I had this amazing experience, and I got to experience this phenomenal love from this being. Oh my God, it was just unbelievable. And I wanted to just like shout it out to the whole world. Oh my God, I got to tell you what happened. I got to tell you about these beings and how beautiful they are and how loving they are. And oh my God, but who am I going to tell? Right? This was back in the 86? Who am I going to tell back in 86? I ended up telling my husband, and bless his heart, he tried. He was, okay, so he was, okay, this is the way he put it. I believe that you believe that it happened to you, but I can't be 100% on board unless I have an experience like it myself. I'm going to support you the best I can, but all I can do is tell you, I believe that you believe, and I know I don't think you're crazy. So that's all I had. I couldn't tell my family. I could tell nobody, because I didn't want people to think I was crazy. So right after that happened, I would say within a couple of weeks or so, I started getting this very overpowering urge to soak up anything and everything I could find on this subject. And it led me down this massive rabbit hole. I read every book I could get at the library. I went to the bookstore, which didn't have a whole lot, but it is what it is. We didn't have internet, so whatever. I read everything I could get my hands on. And what was weird was that one of the books that I found and I started reading was Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb. And I don't know if anybody's read that, but a lot of it's just like Yeah, because she talks about, you know, hanging out with movie stars and stuff, which I'm not into. But when she talks about the spiritual experiences she had, that I found really fascinating. And what was weird about me reading that book was that as I was reading it, all of the experiences that she had, it wasn't like I was learning something new. It was like I was remembering something I forgot. Everything that I read was like, oh my God, I know that. How do I know that? I've never even heard that before, but yet I felt like I knew it already. So like I said, I was just reading anything and everything I could get my hands on. And then I started having this really weird experience where, if you've ever had an experience where you can't remember something, but just before you remember it, and it's on the tip of your tongue, and just before you remember it, it disappears. And so that was happening like 50 times a day. I didn't even know what I was trying to remember. I didn't know what was going on. There was something weird going on in my head, and I didn't understand it, and it was driving me bat crazy. So I remember, and this went on for days. So I remember I was so frustrated because like 50 times a day this was going on. I remember standing in my living room and I was so frustrated, and it happened again. And I just put my hands up like this and I said, what is it? What is it? What is it? And then I heard a man's voice that, as if he was standing right next to me. He said to me, be patient, it's coming. It was so gentle and so loving the way he said that. I freaking lost it. I am bawling my eyes out. I'm going, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I really thought, I was really afraid that I was going crazy. Like something had happened to my mind. And so it wasn't too far after that, maybe a few days, when it felt like I had a massive Kundalini awakening. It was like a gate completely opened up, and all of this knowingness came flowing through so fast that I thought I was going to go nuts. And it was so overwhelming, and it wouldn't stop. And I finally had to, you know, I finally had to get upset and beg for this to stop, because it was just too much. It was too much all at one time. And it did what it did. So I had this download. You want to call it a download? I'm going to call it a download. I don't know what else to call it. So I had this massive download, and looking back on it, because I was so I had like no knowledge about spirituality or any of that stuff. I was raised Catholic. I thought it was stupid. No offense to anybody who's Catholic, but organized religion was just not my thing. I knew from a really little girl that you guys are crazy. Like, you know, go to church and having this priest tell you all this stuff. I'm going, that's not right. That doesn't make sense. It never made sense to me. So all of the spiritual stuff, I did, you know, other, you know, metaphysical stuff, I should say. That's what was kind of flowing, that was kind of being downloaded into my mind. But looking back on it now, it was really metaphysics 101, because, you know, I've been studying metaphysics now for, God, what, 40 years. And so really it was kind of metaphysical 101 kind of stuff, but it was a lot for me at that time. So I had that major, and so when they jump started me, they really jump started me. I mean, that was what they did. They were waking me up. You got a job to do here, you know, and it's time for you to do it. So you got to start, you know, getting up to speed. and that's what they were doing. I fully believe that. So anyway, the next year, we ended up moving we transferred out of California. We went to Memphis, to NAS Millington, and we were stationed there for 2 years. When I got there, I started having out-of-body experiences. Mike was talking earlier about out-of-body. He's been having out-of-body experiences. Well, I started having massive out-of-body experiences too. I had never even heard of OBEs. I had no idea what was happening. I just remember opening my eyes, looking at my body, laying down on the bed next to my husband, hovering over myself and just completely freaking out. So not going to go through the whole process of, you know, where that led me, but it got to the point where I wasn't afraid of it anymore. Once I got some help and trying to figure out, you know, what it was, and that it's not something to be scared of, and that it's perfectly natural and normal, and everybody, you know, a lot of people have these experiences. So then we moved from, after that 2 years, we moved to Iceland, and we were there for a couple of years. And when I got up to Iceland, the out-of-body experiences, I mean, they were wow. I mean, oh my gosh, like almost on a nightly basis, I was having major out-of-body experiences. I'm gonna tell you one story that's the best out-of-body experience I ever had. When you've had an out-of-body experience, you always go, did that really happen? You know, am I really out of body? Or, you know, you question it, right? So one night I was out of body, and I had been doing this now for a while. So it was like, once I'm out of body and I'm standing in my room, I'm going, what do I want to do tonight? You know, where do I want to go tonight? You know, so I'm standing outside my, you know, beside my bed. I'm looking at me, I'm laying in the bed, you know, my husband's laying in the bed. And so I'm trying to decide what I want to do. So I said, I know, I'm going to go get my friend Donna. So Donna, I never told Donna that she was my best friend in Iceland, and I did not tell her any about this stuff. I didn't tell her, she knew nothing about all of this stuff, right? So, but whatever reason, I decided I was going to go get Donna. So as soon as I was at the point now where I didn't really so much fly, I just thought about where I wanted to be, and I would be there. So I thought about Donna, and then I was in her bedroom. And looking back on it, I'm going, ooh, that's kind of weird. I want to be in somebody's bedroom, you know, with my friend laying there with her husband. But anyway, whatever. So I'm in her bedroom, and I'm standing at the foot of her bed, and I see her. She's sleeping. So I walk over to her side of the bed, and I take her by the hand, and I pull her whatever you want to call it, her spirit or her whatever, out of her body. Now she's standing next to me. And I held on to her, and you know, in my mind, it's like, ooh, Donna's gonna love this. I gotta take her on a flight. So I held her by the hand, and we floated up. We went out through the roof, and we started flying. And we're flying, and we can, you know, we're looking down at the, you know, the ground, and you know, and the scenery and all this kind of stuff. Then we get to this house, and when I was having the experience, I knew what was going on, but when I came out of it the next day, I don't really understand what happened. But we went to this house, and we floated down in the middle of the roof, and we landed in the middle of this big, large room. And it had, where we landed, there were chairs in a big circle, and we landed in the middle of the circle. And I looked around, and there were a lot of people that were in the room. And as soon as they saw us, they all very quietly came, and they sat down in the chairs. Now we're standing in the middle, and they're in the chairs that are surrounding us. And I started talking, and I started telling them stuff. I don't know what I told them. I don't remember. I talked for a while, and then when I was done, I took Donna by the hand, and we floated up through the roof, and I took her back to bed, to her bed. And then I went back home, and I went to bed. Well, the next morning, I am chomping at the bit. I want to call Donna and ask her, did she have that experience? But I was terrified, because I didn't want her to think I was nuts. So multiple times I picked up the phone to call her. Multiple times I put the phone down. I can't do it. Finally, you're never going to know unless you ask. So I finally decided, what the heck, I'm just going to do it. She thinks I'm crazy, doesn't want to be my friend anymore, then whatever. So I called her up, and she answered the phone, and I said, hey, I got a really weird question for you. And she said, what's up? And I said, did you by any chance have a dream about me last night? And she was quiet for a minute, and I was quiet, and I was waiting. And then she goes, yeah, I did. And I said, what'd you dream? And she told me everything we did. And she ended it with, we held hands and flew away. So that was my validation that out-of-body experiences are real. They really happen. Absolutely, 100%. They really happen. So wow. That said, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, I just learned the term very recently called shared death experiences. And that's when you have an experience with someone that you're close to that crosses over, and you're you know, brought to that realm, and you see, you know, you have different experiences with them. This to me would be a shared out of body experience.
Yeah.
You know, that you're both having that experience.
Yeah.
During the sleep state, which
Yeah.
is really cool. That is really cool.
Yeah. So I was so excited when she told me that. And so I said, Donna, are you sitting down? Because I got to tell you something. And so I went ahead, and this is so weird. I understand why it happened this way now, but I didn't at the time. So I said, I got to tell you this. So I told her the whole story about my out of body experiences, how I came and got her, blah, blah, blah. And when I was done, she was really quiet. She didn't say anything. And she may have said something like, or like, wow, or something like that. And then she said, so what are you doing this weekend? It was almost like I think what happened was she wasn't ready to hear that. So her mind couldn't process it.
Yeah.
And so it didn't process it.
Right. TMI.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Overload. So
yes.
Shut it down.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when she reacted like that, it really, you know, it really bothered me. It hurt me. But I thought, you know, okay, well, you know, obviously that's not her thing. So I never spoke about it again. Mm-hmm. You know, we were friends the whole time, and I never told her anything else. But it was enough for me to understand, you know, to know for you know 100% that experience really did happen. Yeah. So moving forward, we came back and from Iceland, and we moved to Jacksonville, Florida. And I didn't have a whole. Let me tell you something about Jacksonville. Jacksonville's energy is not really good. I have had very few out-of-body experiences since I've been here. Mm-hmm. I've had some ET stuff going on since I moved here in 1990. So I've had some things happen here, but it's almost like it's almost like it's really dense here. Like the energy just isn't good. And I've never liked living here. I've never felt comfortable here. It just hasn't been a really spiritual place for me. So, but I have had some things happen. I'm trying to think what the next, let me look at my notes real quick, because there's a couple things I wanted to bring up. So okay, so I joined a meetup group. I forget, 2015-ish. I joined a meetup group, and I went, and one of the meetings was at the organizer's home, and it was about UFOs and ETs and things. And he was an author. He wrote a book, and so he was an interesting guy. So we were all at his house hanging out, and he had invited a hypnotherapist to join the to come to the meeting. And so this guy talked about what he does, and he does past life regressions and things like that. Mm-hmm. So after the meeting, I was telling him a little bit about things that I have experienced, and so he said, I want to do a regression on you and see what we can find out about your experience. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went in and had a session with him at his office, and I was able to, during that session, I was able to see. I didn't see her whole face, so he took me back to that, the spacecraft thing, and I was able to see some of her face. Well, let me explain. So it was almost like I was like nose to nose with this being. So I couldn't see her whole face, but I could see her eyes. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. So her eyes were not like shaped like ours, like, the way our eyes are shaped. They were more round. But the colors of her eyes were this crystalline blue, and I could see what looked like shards in her what do you call it, the irises, and just absolutely breathtaking. the way her eyes looked. And so I'm in this experience, and I'm hypnotized, and he's talking me through this, right? So as soon as I see her eyes, I start crying, because not only do I see her eyes, now I'm reliving that feeling of that unconditional love, right? So I start crying. Well, he doesn't know why I'm crying. So he's going, it's okay, you're safe, no one's going to hurt you, because he thought I was having some traumatic thing, right? Mm-hmm. So I go, no, you don't understand. It's so beautiful. I'm going, it's so beautiful. And he's going, oh, okay. We'll carry on. So I was able to see her eyes and feel that powerful love all over again. It was absolutely amazing. He brought me back into the ship. I saw more details of things, but I still didn't understand what the whole thing was about. And what I don't want to go over time here. What are we going to?
Yeah, you're okay. We have time.
Okay. So anyway, I got a little bit more information from that. That was really important to me. I really got to see her eyes, and so that was pretty amazing. So then in let's see, a few years later, I had found this audio that I could download from Amazon, and it was a past life regression audio. And I thought, what the heck, I'm gonna download this and see how this works. And it was supposed to take you to this really ultra deep state. And so I bought it, I downloaded it, and I tried it out. So my expectation doing this was, I wasn't thinking about going back and trying to get more information about the ET stuff. I was just curious about maybe human past lives. That's where my mindset was. So, I was expecting to have an experience of, me just being a normal human being on the planet in some time frame or whatever. So, I went through this, I put my headphones on, and I'm listening to this audio thing. And then when he gets to the point where he says, open your eyes and look down at your feet. So I open my eyes and look down at my feet, and I see these like funny looking kind of shoe things, and almost like a boot kind of thing, but it was odd looking. So I didn't really quite understand, what I was looking at. And then he said, okay, look around the room that you're in. So I started looking, so I brought my eyes up and I started looking around the room, and then I don't even remember the whole rest of the whole, regression thing, because it was like I wasn't even doing it anymore. When I lifted my eyes up and I looked around, I was in a spaceship. I was in this room, and there was an ET being, the same lady who was standing outside the spaceship. She was standing in front of me, and she was talking to me telepathically. And I turned my head and I looked, and there was a big window, a picture window here, kind of a, I don't know, it was like an egg-shaped window kind of thing. And I looked out of it and I could see the Earth. Oh my God, it was so beautiful, just hanging out in space. So I'm looking at her, and she's talking to me. And during this conversation that we're having back and forth, what I figured out was that I was an ET. I live on this ship. They have a program, for lack of a better word, where where the people who live there could volunteer to go to Earth and become a human, have a human body, be born on Earth, and work one-on-one with people, to help people wake up to, the knowledge of extraterrestrials and what that's all about, and spirituality and metaphysics and all of that stuff. And I had volunteered for this program. And the conversation that her and I were having was, she wanted to make sure that I really wanted to do this, because what she said was, if you choose to do this, your life will be difficult, because in order to understand the human condition, there are a lot of things that you have to live through. In order for you to be able to empathize with other humans, you have to experience some things, some not so good things, some good things and some not so good things. And it's going to be difficult. And I want, and I really want to make sure that you are fully aware of what you're getting yourself into. And I remember my mindset was like, you know, how hard can it be? You know, this could be a piece of cake. You know, I was, you know, what's the big deal? You know, this, you know, not a big, yeah, absolutely. I'm ready to go. So I told her, yes, I am absolutely, this is exactly what I want to do, because I understood that those beings on that ship up there in space were helping to raise the consciousness of the planet. And they had, the program that they had was the volunteers would come down to work one-on-one with the human race versus helping the human race from afar, if that makes sense. So when I explained to her, yes, absolutely, this is what I want to do, she said, okay. And then we left the room and we started walking down this really long hallway. And we got into this room, and it looked, well, I say a room, it was almost like it was as big as an airplane hangar. It was huge. And in this hangar were egg-shaped, I call them pods. I don't know what else to call them, but they're kind of egg-shaped, and they have a door. And so we walked over to this pod with where the door was open, and I got into the pod, and there was no instruments or anything. It was just a seat, is all it was. And I got in there, and the door closed, and there was a window in front of my face, and I could see her on the other side of the window. And she put her hand on the glass, and I put my hand on the glass. And she told me telepathically, she says, you will never be alone. We will never leave you. We will always be with you, always. And so I was like, you know, I just felt, wow. I mean, it was just amazing. So, oh, getting emotional. Anyway, so then the pod started filling up with this liquid, and it covered me entirely. As soon as it covered my head, my next memory is being outside of the spaceship, far away, looking at the spaceship. And as I'm looking at the spaceship, I can see what looks like little sparks, like from a fire, little red sparks, like hundreds of them, coming, like shooting from the spaceship toward the Earth. And I knew that all of those sparks were a part of my soul, and they were going down to Earth, and they were going to be human bodies in the past, in the present, in the future, all simultaneously. And as soon as I saw that and realized what was going on, that's when I came out of the hypnotic state. So as soon as I came out of the hypnotic state, I opened my eyes, and it took me a minute to really process because like I said, I wasn't expecting to have anything like that. I was expecting, you know, just a normal past life regression thing. That is not what I expected. When it took me a minute to really understand what had just happened. And then I just freaking lost it. I bawling my eyes out, because so much made sense to me about that feeling of not belonging here, that feeling of being, this is not my home. Who are you crazy ass people? Who are, you know, what am I doing here? All of that now made sense. This isn't my home, and it's probably not any of ours home, right? We're probably none of us are probably from here. So, you know, it made sense to me, and that was so, that took such a huge load off of me, being able to really grasp that, understand that concept. It was pretty phenomenal. So I laid there for maybe 20 minutes, you know, going through every little detail and trying to, you know, I wanted to burn all of that into my brain. And then I started thinking, oh my God, I wonder if there's other people out there that have had experiences like this, right? So I grabbed my computer, I'm Googling this, and I'm every kind of search thing I can, and I can't find anything where anybody has had an experience with, they got in a pod and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. I could find nothing. So a few weeks later, I had met this other hypnotherapist, totally different person. And I was going to go back to him and see if he could maybe, help me figure this out. So I went to that appointment, and when I got there, I told him what had happened about, when I did that past life regression and what I experienced. And I said, David, I said, have you ever heard of anybody having an experience like this before? He said, actually, I have. I said, are you kidding me? He said, there is a lady that lives right here in Jacksonville that has told me a story almost identical to what you just told me. And I said, oh my God. He said, what I'll do is I'll email her and see if she'd be willing to meet with you. And then if she is, then I'll hook you guys up via email, and then you guys can take it from there. And I said, oh my God, thank you so much. So about a week later, I get an email from her. And so we scheduled to meet at like a little restaurant and wait for lunch. And she told me her story. Oh, it is almost identical to what happened to me. Her pod was in a different place. It wasn't on a spaceship. And she was afraid when she got in her pod. She was reluctant to go, but her, I want to say mentor, I don't know, the ET that was with her, told her that she would, assured her that everything was fine. And this is something that, she needs to do, and blah, blah, blah. And so she was okay with it, and she had it. So almost identical. So that was another validation to me that what I experienced was real. It was absolutely 100% real. And and since all of that happened, I mean, my whole life pretty much makes sense at this point. I pretty much get it, what it is I'm doing here, what my purpose is here. And it really makes life a lot more bearable, knowing, that we're all part of something bigger, and that it's not just, this normal life that we live, get up and go to work and, and pay the bills and all that stuff. It's so much more. It is so much more. And we're all a part of that. It's not just me. We're all a part of that. We all have a part in that. All of us do. We may not come from the exact same ETs, but we all come from some type of ET that is trying to, help the planet and help humans here on the planet. So we got a big job, and we got a big responsibility, and it's nothing, that we should just take lightly. I mean, this is some serious stuff. So I want to jump ahead really quick, and then I'll do some questions and stuff. But I want to jump ahead to something that happened. I say recently, but I started to do, after all this started happening, I started to do a little bit of channeling and some automatic writing and stuff like that, and some other things I've kind of been getting my feet into. But let's see, in November, I was at so in, wasn't November, it was maybe October-ish of last year. I was at a friend's house, and I have a friend, very good friend of mine. She's a really talented psychic medium, and I was at her house, and her husband's birthday, at a birthday party for her husband. And while we were all there, she said, do you guys want to do, I'll do readings for you guys if you want. And we're like, oh yeah, do that. So so she started going around the room, giving everybody readings. And when she came to me, she said, the ETs are waiting for you. And I said, I don't know what that means. And she said, they're waiting for you. They want to work with you, and they're waiting for you. And I said, okay, but I'm here. I'm here. I'm going, I'm here. I'm ready. I'm here. I'm ready. And so then and then in November, the following month, I was asleep, and I was having this dream that I was asleep. So in my dream, I'm sleeping. I'm dreaming that I'm asleep. And in my dream, if that makes any sense, I was trying to wake up in my dream because I felt like somebody was watching me. So I'm having this dream about me dreaming, and I can't wake up in my dream because I feel like there's somebody watching me. and I'm struggling to try to wake myself up in my dream. Well, so I'm going through this whole big process of trying to wake up because, you know, I feel eyeballs on me. so all of a sudden my body, my real body, wakes up, and I'm laying on my back in my bed, and I've got the blanket up to here, and my arms are like laying across my stomach. And so I'm laying there, and my eyes shoot open, and standing at the foot of my bed is an extraterrestrial. And he is so tall that if he stood straight up, his head would be through the roof, through the ceiling. So he was leaned over like at the waist, and he was just watching me. It was like, what? And it took me a second to realize what I was looking at. He was, okay, so he wasn't like solid, but he wasn't see-through either. He was more like opaque-ish color. Like I may have been able to put my arm through him if I tried, but he wasn't solid, but I couldn't see through him. In other words, he was like whitish, like he was milky or whatever. And he had long hair. He was humanoid. He had normal looking eyes, but his cheekbones were really sharp, like sharp. And then he had a really sharp jawline and a larger jaw. And then the chin was very sharp as well. So he had very distinct, sharp features, and long white hair. And like I said, he was all white. So whether his hair was really white, I don't know. He wore the white robe thingies. All I didn't see his feet because I could see the bottom of the bed. And it took me a second. I saw him, and then all of a sudden I went, ah, and when my arms went up, the blanket went up. And when the blanket went up, it covered him. And when the blanket came down, he was gone. So the first thing that came out of my mouth, loud and clear, was, well, that's not what I had in mind. I want to work with you, but don't show up in my bedroom at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning and scare the crap out of me. Oh my God. So then I'm laying there, and I'm trying to process what it is that I just experienced. And I was just so like in shock about what I had just seen. And then all of a sudden I got really super sleepy. Like I couldn't keep my eyes open, and I'm fighting it, and I'm fighting it, and I'm fighting it. I could not fight it to save my life. Finally, I just gave into it, and I went to sleep. So I don't know if he took me somewhere, or I don't know what happened, but I feel like something happened after that because of how sleepy, like I could not keep my eyes open to save my life. So I had that experience. And then the following January, which was January of this year, I had gone to Arkansas to visit my mom, and I was flying home. And I took an early flight. So I had gone to Atlanta, changed planes in Atlanta. So I was on my last leg from Atlanta to Jacksonville. And it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I have a window seat, and I've got this ritual, right? For years and years, every time I fly, I try to get a window seat. I sit and I put my intention out there. I want to see a UFO, and just show yourself or whatever. And I don't like dwell on it. I just kind of put it out there. And if something happens, bye, Amy. So, bye, Amy. So I got a window seat. So I'm looking out, blue sky, not a cloud in the sky. It's a gorgeous morning, right? So I look out the window, and I put my little intention out there like I always do. And then I just forget it, and I'm just looking, and I'm just watching. And I could see off in the distance, you know how you can see a plane with a contrail that comes out of the plane, and it just kind of flying with that little contrail. So I'm just watching that. And then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, okay, this thing didn't fly in. Okay, it didn't like buzz in, didn't come in. It just appeared. This, I want to say tic tac, because it was shaped like a tic tac, and it was silver, and it was right in front of me, right outside. Not right. I'm not gonna say right outside the window, but it was way closer than that airplane was. That was way off in the distance. It was looking out the window. It was probably like this big. So kind of judge how, you know, I don't know. There's no way you can tell the distance that it was. But all of a sudden, it just appeared. And then it moved toward the back of the plane about, I don't know, this far. And then all of a sudden, boom, it was gone. It didn't shoot off. It just disappeared. Like it was there and then it wasn't there. And I'm going, oh, you have no idea how hard it was. I wanted to stand up so bad and just scream, did anybody else see that? But I thought, I can't do that. I'll never get off this plane without a straitjacket. So that was just in January. So they're here, right? They're here, and they want to work with us.
Oh yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, God, thank you so much for that beautiful share. And God, I mean, so many things that you shared. Just I'm like taking notes because there's so many things that I'd love to just ask you about, and then so many things that reminded me of things that happened, or you know what I mean? So it's amazing. So the first thing I want to ask you about, and then when I'm done asking some questions, I'll open up the room for others to ask questions. And the way we're going to do that today is there's a raised hand function at the bottom where it says reactions, and you can raise your hand that way, and then I'll call on you in order. So, okay, so you were talking about your early experience of the pushing on the blanket.
Right.
And how it went, you know, from the foot down, and then it started to travel up to, you know, the top part of you.
Right.
Okay. So, and then you felt a touch on your back. Okay. But then did you fall asleep after that? Or
hell no.
Okay. You just you laid there and you were scared.
I was scared. I laid awake for hours. I don't even know if I ever went back to sleep.
Okay. So I want to share this story only because sometimes this is part of the phenomena that happens. All right. And if it's okay with you, Terry, because Terry and I had a conversation a couple months ago, and Terry shared this story with me. So it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after Terry and I spoke on the phone, we ended up talking for like, I think it was like an hour and a half. We were just, both of us were just gabbing about our stories and stuff. And it's funny, we had a lot of stuff in common. But when I fell asleep that night, I was laying in bed, and all of a sudden I felt my blanket being pushed down around, like starting at the foot, then it was going up, and then it was like right next to me. And I was just about falling asleep, and I wasn't scared because I knew it was them showing me like, yeah, we're here. You know, we heard you guys talking, and look, we're here. I just looked. And I think the next night I went outside, and I just said, I just said, I know you guys are here. And I don't know why I said that, because I don't always say that when I go outside at night, but I'm just like, I know you guys are here. And then next thing I know, I look up at the sky and there's a UFO. So I ended up filming that. And then I called Terry, and I told her the story about those two things. But that's kind of, sometimes that's how they show us that they hear us, they see what we're doing, that we're all connected, that they're in on this, you know. And it's just so funny, and it's fun. It's fun.
Well, you know what? I forgot to mention this too, because that story is actually, I don't know if you can see this. here's a book called The Gulf Breeze Sightings. It's written by Ed Walters and Francis Walters, and they live in Gulf Breeze, Florida. And this book was written in 1990. So this was several years after I had my experience with the lady pushing on the bed, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in this story, he talks about an experience that he had when he was 10 years old. And he had the exact same experience of having someone pushing on the bed and moving along his body. And he described the covers moving across his body as well. Yeah. And I found this book at a used bookstore, and probably the year 1993-ish. And so when I'm reading this book and I came to that part, that's when it clicked to me that what had happened to me back in 81, when I had that experience, was ET related.
Right.
Because it was identical to what had happened to me. And it was, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It is very cool.
It really is amazing. And then I thought it was interesting how you just were like in 1986, you said you just felt compelled to go outside because you knew they were coming. Like your family was going to be, it's just kind of like a nonchalant feeling. Like you don't even really think too much about it. It's like, oh, they're here, they're coming, you know? And then how there were other people there and they were in their pajamas, but they were just kind of in a daze, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Then I wanted to ask you about Iceland, because you had mentioned that when you lived in Iceland, you had a lot of experiences.
Oh, yeah.
And so I imagine that it's a whole different frequency there, because there's probably not a lot of the congestion like we have in different parts of the US with traffic and noise and lights and people, and you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I don't know a lot about Iceland, but when I picture it very open, and there's a lot of space in between people. I don't know if that's true, but that's just how I picture it.
Yeah, the energy there is really good. The energy here, not so good. And probably a lot of you guys, if you drive around the city, whatever you live in, you can get different feelings from different areas that you go in. There are a lot of areas within the city of Jacksonville that I won't even go in, just because the energy is so negative and dense. Mm-hmm. So I won't even venture. I would never live in those areas. I mean, it's, yeah. So absolutely, there's so many different places in this country and all over the world that have this different frequencies or different energy where you can experience things a lot more easy than other places.
Right. More natural places, I think,
yes,
need to be like that.
Yes.
Yeah, and I loved how you talked about, that experience where the being told you that before you came into this incarnation, that your life would be very difficult, but that it was that way, designed that way for a purpose.
Yes.
So that you would have deep empathy and you would understand others,
yes,
having gone through so much yourself.
And that was very comforting to me, because I had a very difficult life growing up. I've had a lot of things happen to me that shouldn't happen to anybody, and trying to live with all of that has been really, really hard. But once I was told that and really realized that was by design, it really made it a lot easier for me to accept, all of the things that has gone on in my life. Yeah. And I'm grateful for it now. I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
It all meant something.
Yep. And I think when we're over there and we are aware of what we're planning before we come here, the way I've experienced is that we're in such a different state of frequency. Like we're in this love frequency.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to really understand how dense and heavy it's going to get for us. So we load it on. We're like, bring it on. I can handle it. It's okay.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
It's childbirth.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the middle of labor and you're pushing that kid out and you're like, I am never doing this. Right?
Yes.
But then
I did it 4 times.
another one, right? So you forget all about the pain.
Yes.
And I think that's what happens to us when we're in between these lives, is that we forget, you know. But I don't think we ever take on, like they say, you never experience more than you can handle. I don't think we take on too much, more than we can handle for the most part. You know,
that is true, because I'm still here.
Yeah.
Just plugging along.
And I'll just leave the last comment where where you said you're being told you will never be alone. I will always be with you. You know, that it just moves me really to tears too, because it is a family connection, you know, and to know that they're always with us and they are watching over us, and all we need to do is ask for help. And being in these human bodies, sometimes I know for myself, I forget to ask sometimes. So, but when I do ask and I remember to ask, they really step in and help me. So
yeah,
just so.
And something else too that that I became really aware of is, you know, there's so many people out there that hear stories like mine and other people's, and they go, oh my God, I want that to happen to me so bad. Why can't that happen to me? You got to be careful what you wish for, because this has not been easy.
Right.
You know, this is not. I have had years where I had wished this never had happened to me. It's difficult because you're living in 2 different worlds, right? You're living in what's the normal world, and then you're also living in a metaphysical ET world that you know is the real world. Right. And having to juggle and live in 2 different worlds, it's not easy. It's really not easy.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's yeah, exactly. Be careful what you wish for. And if my biggest thing too, to really hit home, because this work, because it is, there's such a spiritual aspect to it. It's not all about, you know, oh, I want to see a ship and I want to see an ET and and oh, was it a physical being, or was it, you know, because it's a lot of this stuff is through the consciousness, is through our we can experience it through the dream state, we can experience it through the meditation state, through hypnosis, through, you know, you can also have the bleed through when they come through out of the dimensions and you can actually see it, you know, and sometimes it does look translucent, or, you know, sometimes you wake up to them and they're in your room. I mean, there's all different ways, you know, but this comes with a lot of work, because many people that are experiencers, I have found, have had a very challenging upbringing and a challenging life. So it's like there's a dual thing going on with that, but it's all to learn and to grow and evolve spiritually. But yeah, you're doing it, girl. So proud of you. But thank you for sharing your story.
Sure, no problem.
Oh my God, it was amazing. All right, so I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions. You can raise your hand. And then Debbie. Hi, Deb. Up, can you unmute?
You're on mute. There she is.
Yeah.
All right, there you are.
First of all, I want to your story just amazed me, and thank you for sharing everything that you shared, especially about all the stuff with the UFOs and seeing that woman, because I don't have UFO experiences. I'm very spiritual with spirits and medium and healing and that energy, but I'm still so amazed with this because I believed in UFOs forever and ever and ever, and I know they exist and they're wonderful. But I did want to share a funny story when you talked about the being that you will never be alone. You know, when he came to and said that, I've always been with the lion community. They're my totems and they're my Narnia lion, the male lion. But Catherine would remember this story because it's funny that my white lion picture is here right now, because when I meditated like 2 or 3 years ago, and I've had lots of things in my meditation, but never really talking what I could hear. I've heard telepathic. That lion picture, that exact lion picture came to me in my head. I don't remember what was going on at the time, but it was a really bad time in my life. I actually saw his hair blowing in my meditation. He was color, and I heard his voice like I'm talking right now. The same thing that you just said. He said it twice to me, and then I woke up and I was hysterical crying.
Aww.
So it's just amazing, any type of spirit. And I've had a UFO in my head, but I think he's one of my master teachers. His name is Galab. So, but I'm still awakening. I just love all this UFO stuff, and I'm glad Catherine introduced me to all of it.
Aww.
And I love your story. Oh,
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you so much. And also keep in mind that UFOs, ETs, anything metaphysical, it's all tied together.
Yes.
All of it. It's all tied together.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So I'm going to New York in November. So hopefully they know I'm coming, the UFOs. So we'll keep you posted. When I go in Catherine's backyard, I'm probably going to see one finally.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm praying. I keep putting it out there. They said, beware what you say, but I think they know. You know, I live in Arizona. They're here. This would be a great place for you to live, Terry, because the energy here is, whoa. Yeah, but see, I don't go there, and I don't really go outside at night. I really should, because maybe they might pop up if I go outside and meditate. But I guess that's not my calling in this lifetime. Mine's more spiritual the other way. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, if you ever think of moving, you should come here to Arizona.
Yeah.
So, but thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Elizabeth?
Hi, Terry. Yeah, that was a lot of information to unpack.
Yeah,
It
yeah, that
sounds
was
like,
only a part of it.
yeah, wow. Like it sounds like you've been like soul searching for a long, long time. I guess I have so many questions, but I guess I'll start with the one because Deborah kind of like she said about moving to Arizona. I was thinking that maybe like, do you think maybe you're in Jacksonville to be like a shining star for like the darker areas, like so that the people who are more prone to like have these experiences might be drawn to you, like they placed you there on purpose to to be that shining star. Is that possible? Do you think?
Yeah, that is absolutely possible. And I have had other people tell me that as well. And I do tend to believe that. However, I also have to consider what this energy does to me on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And if it's dragging me down and making and I find it really difficult to stay positive being here, then maybe I do need a change, maybe just temporarily. I don't know, but mm-hmm. but I've actually been thinking about moving. Mm-hmm. I have my youngest daughter, the one I took aboard the spaceship. She lives in Seattle, mm-hmm. and I'm thinking about possibly moving there. I have been there on numerous occasions. I love the energy there, and and so I'm really seriously considering moving to Seattle to be with, near her and my new little grandson who's 2 years old, and he's so cute. I don't get to see very often. So, but yeah, you're right. I do think you have a point there.
I would love to see you go to Washington State. It's so beautiful there. I've been there
It is.
times, and the energy there is phenomenal. I haven't been to Seattle, but I've been to 2 other parts of Washington. Oh my God, it is incredible. I love that place. I would move there if I could. So I think you'd love it.
Yeah.
And if it's okay, I'll just segue into another question, as long as no one else is raising their hands. So you brought up your daughter, so I guess I'll go with that one. Like what kind of information have you told your daughters? I know you mentioned that you talked to your husband about it when all this first started, but I'm kind of wondering like how, like as things progressed and you kind of went on your journey searching for answers, like did you tell your children and your husband or your husband like every step of the way, oh look, this is what I'm going to do next? Or did you kind of keep a lot of that to yourself? And like if you can just talk a little bit about like how that affected your relationships, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, my husband at the time, he's not my husband anymore, but he was as, like I said, he was as supportive as he could be, which I really appreciated, because he was the only adult, you know, in my life at the time that I could share that with. And as far as my children, they were pretty young when all of this started happening, so I didn't really tell them too much at first. But when they got older, I told them all about the ET stuff and all my metaphysical journey, my spiritual journey, all the things I experienced, and you know, and all the you know, the things I've been able to do, and so yeah, they've been with me on that journey. Now as adults, really only 2 of my children, of my 4 children, are very open to this type of thing. Actually, my daughter, who I took aboard the spaceship, she was very different when she was growing up. She was not like any of my other kids. Very, very, very intelligent, very smart. And I remember when she was growing up, we used to tell her, you're going to be a lawyer when you grow up. You are absolutely, because she was one of those kids that she would think everything out before she would ask mom or dad if she could do something. She'd have every scenario planned out, so she'd have an answer for it, so she could get her way. And she pulled it off, you know, 9 times out of 10. And so she grew up and went to law school. Now she's got her own own practice in Seattle, so she's doing really well for herself. Now, to talk about, when I talked to her about the ET stuff, she's very analytical thinking, right? So she's not saying that she doesn't believe it, but she's not really on board completely. She has said to me on numerous occasions, maybe I should go get regressed and see if I can remember what happened. She said, because if it really happened, you know, I'd like to know. I'd like to be able to remember that. But she was only 7 or 8 months old, so I don't know. It might be possible she could actually remember something.
So none of your kids have reported having similar experiences? My
second daughter, the one that had all the nightmares, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Sarah, right? She when she grew up, she's very, very intuitive. She sees ghosts. She's had a lot of really interesting metaphysical experiences herself. Nothing ET related that she can think of, but mostly you know, ghosts and things like that. So, which I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Edna? Hi, Edna.
Hi, Terry. How are you?
I'm good, Edna. How are you?
Good. Extraordinary story. Fantastic. And you said recently you had started, with all your experiences that you've had, you started giving readings and channeling. Is that something you're going to transition to, or are you going to keep on doing that going forward?
I come and go with that. I'm not really sure if I'm going to continue doing that or not. I'm still trying to figure out what my place is in all of this. like I said, I had the meetup group. I really feel drawn towards waking people up to the ET experience. And especially right now with what's going on in the world, a lot of people are out there searching for answers right now because everybody is so confused about what's going on this planet right now.
Mhm.
And they're looking for answers. There's got to be, you know, they're out there seeking, you know, answers. And plus with all of the UFO stuff that the mainstream media now is talking about, and they're spinning it in such a way to, you know, more towards, you know, they're a threat to national security and all this stuff. You know, I really, really feel it's important, really, really important that all experiencers get out and start telling their stories about, you know, especially the positive stories, because you don't hear that kind of, you don't hear those stories, right? You hear the anal probing, little, you know what I'm, the scary stuff. That's what you watch a documentary on UFOs. That's what that's what you hear. That's what that's what they talk about.
It's all fear-based.
It's very fear-based, and that needs to change.
Yes, it does.
We have to get out there and start talking about the positive side of this, because it is so huge. And there's a documentary called Abduction Answers.
Yes.
Catherine, okay, so you've heard that?
John was he was here, John Yost. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you haven't seen that, you have got to watch it.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal. It was made for experiencers, and it was so amazing. I bought it because it was just amazing. And he said that there's going to be 2 more that's going to come out.
That's right.
Those stuff like that, we need to get out there and start talking about our experiences. We need to start educating people about this stuff. This is so important, because if the government's going to spin this in a negative way, right?
Yep.
What's it going to do to people? I mean, people are going to be terrified. It's going to be world, you know, what was that? Orson Welles.
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds. Yeah, we don't want that to happen. We don't want people to freak out and, you know, and go.
That's why, Terry, you know, and I think this is why for you too, because we had talked, you know, earlier, that's why we started these groups, because we want to bring people together that are having these experiences. And the positive experiences are so important. I mean, I know that there's a negative aspect to, there's a negative aspect to everything.
Yeah.
But these beings are so beautiful, and just the way you describe that interaction with that beautiful being. I mean, the love, you can't be afraid when they're in your presence. It's like all you can feel is that love. And I've met people that are actually doing meetup groups, bringing people together on Zoom and talking about, saying that they're all negative. All of these ETs are negative, and that the love that you feel is fake, because they manipulate you to feel that way. There's no possible way that anything can manipulate that kind of love. Right. Because love is truth. That is the true reality. Nobody can manipulate hatred to feel like that kind of love. So that guy that's running those groups has an agenda to just talk about all negativity. And I tried to talk to him, but there's no talking to him at all. But this is what I'm saying. There's so many different factions within the UFO ET community that it's, you know, there's all different mindsets about what people are experiencing or have experienced. You know, so I think it is so important what you just said, to bring awareness that, you know, these beings are beautiful and they're spiritual, highly spiritual, evolved beings, and they want to help us. They're here, they're our family, you know, they don't want to see the earth get ruined by, you know, the darkness that's trying to ruin it, you know, so.
Right. And I totally agree with that. And, you know, just like people, we have good people and bad people, and so there's I'm sure there's ETs out there. I've actually seen some that are negative, but the positiveness far outweighs the negative.
That's right.
There's going to be some negative ETs out there with an agenda that's not, not good for us.
Right.
But the positive ETs are extremely powerful and extremely loving. And those are the ones we need to start talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's just so important. I mean, I came out of my ET closet in like 2016, and I started talking about my story. I started sharing my stories. And I've done a couple of radio interviews. I've done things like this, talking at different meetup groups and different events. And I just think it's really, really, really important to have that message out there, because there's just too many people out there talking about the negative stuff, and it's just not good. It's got to be balanced.
Yes, absolutely. So we have Tom.
Yes, hi. Terry, I just wanted to also say that listening to your story was fabulous. It was really good. And it was kind of enlightening for me. In my experience, I oftentimes wonder if I was an ET who agreed to come here, only because I had experience when I was a child where I was surrounded by beings and unbelievable unconditional love. So one thing that I love about your story is that you're telling me an alien gave you that feeling of unconditional love. And I never, really only till now, started to wonder, maybe those beings, I could feel the presence of several beings. I couldn't see them. They were unconditional love. I asked to stay. It happened during a dream state. They said I had to go back. I asked to stay again, all telepathically. And now I'm wondering, were these ETs? I'm always thinking these are angels or spiritual beings. And I don't know. All I do know is that since I was a kid, since I was like 12, 13, I was fascinated with UFO subject and studied and watched anything on TV about UFOs. And I did see a UFO when I was about 25. Didn't look like a traditional UFO. It was a flaming globe, just like sparks shooting out. Bright. My then wife was with me, we were dating, and she saw it too, and it just went horizontally across the sky very slowly. It was huge. And, so it's unidentified flying object, but I don't know what it was. And then I had a spiritual awakening, and the spiritual awakening happened about 17 years ago. And that I had multiple downloads. And one was that UFOs will play a role during these end times. And until that moment, I wasn't 100% sure UFOs were real, and then I knew that they were real. So, and part of my awakening was that we are living the end times, which I know sounds probably a little kooky, but all of this sounds kooky, I guess. But UFOs will play a role, and so I think that you are. I think we all are in some way, kind of here for that purpose in some inexplicable way. And it's interesting that we're having the full human experience, so it's all completely bizarre and astounding to us. Even if we were ETs in a former life, it's like our memory was sapped. I will even say, when I had that childhood memory, that I woke up the next morning completely remembering it, but that memory was then wiped away. And I honestly went through my entire life until I had my awakening at age, I think it was 42 or 45, I'm forgetting how I have to go back. When I had my awakening, it all came back to me. I completely was wiped from my memory, and then it all came back. So and I still, to this day, I'm still living a very human life, but have all these little experiences. But I really appreciate your experience. Not only is it fascinating, but it's making me think, oh, wait a second, maybe those beings were actually ET beings.
So I think you've answered your own question there then.
I kind of think so.
I feel the same way. Yeah. I think that if your intuition is telling you that, that's, especially given everything you've experienced and all of that together, I really, you gotta look at that. I mean, what does your intuition tell you? I think it's ET related. Not to say that there aren't, spirits out there or angels or whatever that can give you that feeling, because there are, but because it seems to be all tied together with the whole UFO thing. So I think you have your answer.
Mhm.
Honestly, I think you're right. And one thing that I think is so great that you're bringing up and others are starting to bring up is that UFOs and spirituality are intimately intertwined. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's no security.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is all connected, just like a spider web. It's all connected.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, appreciate you coming and sharing your story.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I jotted some things down that I wanted to ask you about. You had talked about the pod and going into the pod, and I just love how you described what you saw, or what, I guess what you became, right? Those sparks, all those different sparks that you were seeing, and how it was all different lives that you would have, but it was actually happening all at once. Now that helps me tremendously because, on some level, I know that all of the lives are happening all at once, but I'm focusing right now on this life, okay? But the way that you describe being in that pod and seeing all of those lives at the same time helps me to understand how that could even be possible. You know what I mean? Like it really, really, that is really valuable to.
Yeah, and it's really kind of hard to wrap your mind around multiple lives in the past, present, and future, and everything in between going on at the same time.
Right.
Because up there when you're an ET, I mean, time doesn't exist, right? I mean, it's down here that it does. So trying to wrap our mind around that is pretty mind blowing, I guess.
Yeah, but you gave a visual that actually helps to be able to do that in some small way. I mean, like, I can't really do it because I can't be in all different places all at once, but I can picture that visual that you were describing.
Yeah, and it's really interesting for me to envision that there is right now today an extraterrestrial on a spaceship in a pod in suspended animation or whatever that is and part of her soul is spread out and having all of these experiences all at the same time and helping humans in all aspects of time at the same time. I mean, it's crazy to even think about that.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's so awesome. James?
Thank you for that presentation.
You're welcome.
Did you get a sense as to the species or the race of the aliens that you came from?
There's, I don't know. People have asked me that on numerous occasions, and people get they envision these Nordic beings, and they mostly they'll call them Pleiadians or Andromedans or whatever, and I don't really know, to be honest with you, what species they come from or where exactly they come from. To me, that's kind of irrelevant. And I've never really asked them, so because it's never really been important to me. It just, people want to put a label on everything, right? They want to know what species. No, I'm not picking on you or saying that you shouldn't be asking, because it is curious, and maybe I should know that, and maybe I will ask that.
If it's not important to you, then there's no reason to. So.
Yeah, well, it's never really been important to me, but yeah, I mean, I guess I am kind of curious about that, and I kind of felt like if they wanted me to know, they would have shared it with me already, because I've had multiple, many conversations with them, throughout the years. So, and it's never been something that they brought up. Okay. So for whatever reason, they didn't feel like it was important. So, but yeah, next time I'm on the phone with them, I'll.
Yeah, I guess from my end, it'd be nice to know like which ones are benevolent towards us.
Well, yeah. I see your point. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel the same way with the connections I've had with the different beings. The ones that I've seen, sometimes they'll come in and I'll just get a knowing of where they're from or which, star system they're from, like Andromeda or Pleiades but other times they come in and I'll see them or I'll have a connection with them and there won't be any mention of any of that, So when they don't mention it, I don't really even ask them because I figure the universe and the galaxies are so vast. They can tell me any weird name and I just have to believe it because I don't know what's out there. It's infinite, right? What's out there.
Yeah, and ETs that come from the Pleiades or however you want to say it. I mean, there could be multiple different species that come from that star system, right?
Yes, absolutely. But sometimes when they come in, I'll ask them their names and other times, and they'll tell me, but then most of the time I'll name them.
Oh, so yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, because I have questioned that myself. Like, what is your name? What is your name? They don't have names. I mean, they're not. It's more of a they have their specific energy or frequency, and that's their name. So how do you put that into words?
Right. Yeah.
So basically, they're like, you can call us whatever you want. Just don't call us late for dinner. No.
Right. That's right. But it's interesting how unique and different some of them are because I have seen ones that look a little human, have some human features, but then I've seen ones that are completely different than anything I've ever seen in my life, But yeah, it's very interesting. And then sometimes I just pick a name for them based on what they look like or what they feel like or what kind of connection we had when they showed up, Yeah. And that's how I remember them.
I've seen the bug people.
Okay.
They're not, well, I haven't seen the whole body, but what I saw was the arm with the spines on it. Mm-hmm. I can't do that. I can't. And I've heard that, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're, the bad guys.
Right.
But I don't do bugs. I have this absolute, I am terrified of, say, cockroaches.
Oh yeah.
You know how their legs with the spines on them, right? Yeah. So my whole entire life, I have been terrified of cockroaches. And then I saw a bug, an insectoid, I guess.
Yes.
And part of an insectoid, and it scared me to death. And I don't care if they're good or not good. I don't really know. Disguise yourself. You know how they sometimes can mask themselves to not look like themselves. Yeah, you got to do that. You can't show me that. No.
I like how you're not afraid to put up boundaries with them. I think that's important. Because if there's certain things that you are just not gonna do, it's good to be able to tell them that. Like, no, I don't do that. You're gonna have to come in a better way or a gentler way that I can handle because bugs and me, we just don't. And they listen,
Yeah, they do because they care about you, right? They care about us. They don't want us to be terrified. They don't want us to be traumatized or, right. They want to make it easy for us. So yes. Yeah, but they don't necessarily know what it is that terrifies us. So we got to tell them. Yeah. No, I can't handle that. You gotta show me something else.
Right. But that's good. It's good to put up those boundaries, and this way you have a good working relationship with them.
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
Let Mike go first because I don't think he's asked anything yet. And if there's time, I'll ask mine.
Okay. Mike?
Ooh, wow. I don't know what to say. Thanks, Elizabeth.
That's great, right?
I really enjoy, this, your presentation.
Thank you.
It's out of this world,
Literally.
Yeah.
No
yes,
fun.
I've had hundreds. Yeah, you're right. I do have a question. Are angels and ETs, are they separate? Or can angels be Mhm.
Go ahead, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, you got it. Yeah, you good.
Yeah, I think they can, I think they can be either or. I think they can be, yes, I'm gonna say yes to that. I mean, ETs can definitely be angels and angels can be ETs, absolutely.
Oh, wow, yeah. Because I've been listening to this on the NDE talks, it's the NDE radio, the episode they had, this guy, he described this being, he was like dressed in like an armor, like a warrior, and he was huge. It was tall, and it was something that you wouldn't want to make him mad, anything like that. But the being had the swords and everything. I mean, man, it was incredible.
Wow.
So have you seen any beings like that during your experiences? Have you seen one dressed up in armor? I mean, just totally armored up?
Actually, I saw this being one time, and it was only for like a fleeting moment. I saw him, and then he didn't see me at first, and then he saw me, and then so I was in the twilight state, between sleep and awake.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean,
you can see a lot of interesting things in
yes.
twilight state, right?
Yeah, that's my state.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great state for the OBEs, right?
Oh, yes, I've had hundreds of them.
Yeah. So I was in this
thousands.
So I was in this twilight state, and then all of a sudden this scene appeared before me, and I was on what looked like a spacecraft. I don't know if it was a spacecraft, but it looked like I was on a spaceship. And I was in this room, and there was a round platform, and there was a being standing on the platform, and he was kind of short and kind of stocky, and he was dressed in this he had like an armor plated thing on his chest, and then he had like regular pants and boots, and then he had this really big head. He didn't have any like a helmet or anything, but he had this really big head, and he was looking like I was looking at him, but he was looking off in another direction. And then as soon as I became aware of him, I guess he sensed me being there, and he turned really slowly, and he looked at me, and he had, no lie, his eyes were round like saucers, like perfectly round eyes, and they were black. And when he looked at me, he had no expression on his face at all, but he turned really slowly, and he looked at me, and as soon as he looked at me, just like that, I was out of there. I flew awake and just flailed. I'm like, oh my God, what was that? Oh my God, it scared me so bad.
I think because he had bug eyes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Maybe that's why it scared me so bad.
Bug eyes.
Oh, Catherine. Made me come over there.
Now you need to show her the picture of that bug you showed us last week.
Oh, no. Don't
I used to play with the bugs when I was a kid.
That's why
I played with bugs.
Terry, I don't want to scare you, Terry. It was
don't.
It was ginormous.
Yeah, if it's a close-up picture of a bug head, I'm not. I can't do that.
Yeah, I used to play with the bugs when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, you like the bugs?
Yeah, I like bugs.
That's what boys do, though, right? That's what all boys do.
I play with all kinds of bugs, and spiders and grasshoppers and everything in between. Wow.
Well, I made the mistake last week of trying to let one go free out of my house. And the bug was literally it had a 4-inch long tail.
Wow.
Tail. I have never seen a tail on a bug. And it had a wingspan that was about 4 or 5 inches long. And it had a body that was oblong that went up in a hump. And we all stood there looking at this thing going, what the hell? It was in my kitchen. My daughter let it in when she came in the house. I had company here. I was having a little barbecue. So the guy in my house goes, kill it. And I said, no, we're not killing it. And of course, because I want to set it free, I'm like, no, we're gonna
Yes.
let it out.
I said bugs free. Yeah.
Yeah, I set it free.
I would set it free.
Unless it's a mosquito, I'm sorry, mosquito world, but no, it's either you or me, and you're not getting me. But other bugs, I'll let them out if, you know, if I can. So I took my broom and I very gingerly went over to it to let them climb onto the tip of the broom. And they told me to open the door, I'll let it out. So I started to walk with it and it started to fly around my head. So I was like, ah! I wasn't brave anymore at that point. I started to run, and I wear Crocs most of the time. So Crocs don't do well when you run. And my foot got into the floor and I literally fell on my ribs, and my face literally hit the floor. I ended up with a
Oh yeah, I remember you telling
black and
that
blue
story.
nose. My
You shared
lips
that
had a
story.
bruise all underneath because my tooth went into my lip. My
Wow.
ribs, I
Yeah.
couldn't even breathe. It knocked the wind out of me. I thought I broke my ribs. So I'm on the mend now. It's going to take weeks for my ribs, but this is what happened because of this ginormous bug that was in my house, and I was trying to save it.
No good deed goes
Killed it.
unpunished.
I'll see. I let him out we let him out after that, and he got out, and then he just hung around my
Oh,
door.
good.
Yeah, he hung around the door. He didn't even leave, you know. So but I'll let them out again. I won't kill them if I can help it. So I feel like it's bad
All
karma,
right.
you know. I feel bad karma. So except for
Yeah.
mosquitoes. I don't mind smashing them. I'm sorry, but I have my limits. So Elizabeth, did you have a question?
Yeah, and it can be a pretty quick one too. I was wondering, because it sounded like you were saying, the way you were describing being on the pod and then outside the pod and everything, like you kind of experienced some parts as the ET that you were, maybe. And so I'm wondering, like, you know, like a running theme of ET and spiritual experiences is that when we come into the earth and into these bodies, like the reason it's so difficult is we're going from like the 8th dimension or 12th or whatever to the 3rd. And I'm wondering, like, where on that spectrum do you think your race, your ET race or whatever, is? Or like, do you find it irrelevant? And like, do you remember like what it was like? And can you explain any of it?
I can explain. I don't know what you know, dimension they're from. It's not something I asked. Just they are very well. Obviously, they're very, very spiritual. They are they speak telepathically. They are I mean, their whole purpose is revolves around love. I mean, that is their whole thing. And they are I don't know how to explain. The things that they teach are, some people may think is a little controversial. You guys would probably understand it though. They don't see bad and good, right? They see everything is as it should be. Everything is, because we live in a world that's, you know, duality. We have to have one. We can't have one without the other, right? Because it balances the 3rd dimension. So they don't see anything that we, you know, if somebody kills somebody, they don't see that as bad. They see that as experience. They see that as we are all here to have our experiences, whether it's good or whether it's bad. We all come here to experience everything that there is to experience. And so there is no good or bad. So they're really on a really pretty high level as far as their way of thinking. As far as what dimension, you know, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would probably guess maybe 6 or 7. That's just my guess.
Yeah, there's no judgment with them. at all.
No, absolutely, absolutely no
Love,
judgment.
just
They
love.
loved everybody here just as much as they love Hitler. I mean,
Yes,
because
that's right.
everybody, you know, they play a role. They play a purpose. I mean, there is no judgment.
Right. That's right.
You know, I've often said that, like, you know, of course, when in my younger days, I never thought this way, but the more I'm doing things like this, the more I believe that there really is no such thing as good and evil. It's only perspective.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. And we could all do evil things given the right situation, you know, so,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes things that we think are bad end up really being good, but we just don't know it while we're in it because we think it's something bad that's happening in our life. You know, I'll talk from my own experience. You know, I've had things where I've thought, oh my God, this is so bad, this is so terrible. But then, you know, now that I'm away from it, I'm looking back at it and I'm like, oh my God, that was really so good because, you know, everything played out a certain way. And if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened. So
yeah, exactly. And one of the stories that I like to one of the things, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. One of the stories that I like to tell, it kind of helps explain this, is you guys remember Adam Walsh, the little boy that got murdered. And you know, that guy who, Otis, whatever his name was, that murdered that little boy. I mean, that, you know, in my mind, that was an evil thing to do, right? I mean, that was not a good thing to do. That little boy came here to experience what he experienced so that his father could start this organization that he started in order to help missing children, find missing children. That's huge.
yes,
That little boy sacrificed his little life
yes,
so that something good can come out of it.
right,
Right. So anything bad that somebody does, you know, I would say probably 9 times out of 10, something good's going to come out of it. Whether it comes out of it in this life or the next life, something good is going to come out of everything bad that happened to us or happened to someone else.
right.
There's
His dad
nothing happens.
also, his
Yeah,
dad volunteered to come in and be his dad and go
Yes.
through that horrible experience
Yes.
to then start that organization. But he had a choice every step of the way of whether he wanted to, you know, whether he chose to grieve the loss and stay in that grief, or to turn it into a service to help others and to, you know, bring some good to other people that he, you know.
Yes.
ended up
And
helping.
yes, and you have to think of the murderer too, right? He came here to play that role in order for all that to happen.
Right. And that's hard as a human to wrap our head.
It
like,
is.
it's
It
hard
is
to
very,
wrap
very
your
hard.
head around and your heart around sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say something quickly because with the kids, we think it's so traumatic that that little boy got murdered. And I believe what you're saying. And I know from my friend Liz, who was dying, because sometimes, like when that little boy was being murdered, he was out of his body before he was feeling the impact. Or like that mom who drowned her 3 children will say, oh my God, it's so devastating, but they're out of their body. Because, you know, when they say Jesus sacrificed himself, we don't really, as being a spiritualist, we think the Bible is beautiful stories, but we're not truthful of the truth. But I believe Jesus was truthful, but I don't think he suffered on the cross, like they're saying, because he would have left his body. So, but yes, and that makes it comforting, even though I don't want to hear that stuff on TV, because I'm very empathic, but absolutely what you're saying, because my friend Liz, who Catherine knew, she was 46 years old and she was dying of cancer. And she finally, after 20 years, one of her old friends wanted her to come and live in North Carolina and get out of hospice. And hospice put her on a plane with all her drugs. You know, hospice, they give you all these great drugs. he ended up being in a beautiful house, but she didn't realize that now he's a homosexual, and it wasn't the homo part, but all these guys were living there and they were stealing all her drugs. So she pleaded with me and Jenny, can she come back and stay with us till we could get her back in hospice again? And we did get her back, and we saw somebody wheeling her when we got off at JFK in New York. And she hasn't had meds for 30 days now. And she was in the dying stage. I said, how are you coping with the pain, Liz? She says, Debbie, I'm not in my body. I'm on top right now. And that like blew me out of the water, but it makes a lot of sense, because she used to tell me she doesn't see people anymore. It's just boxes, because she was at that, when we die, I guess we'll all figure it out. We'll see what, So that was just so amazing to me. And it makes you realize that we don't suffer, even when a woman is getting murdered, or it's a horrendous act, but it's so comforting to know that we're boom out of that body, but we watch it. We see, but
Right, but we don't.
And that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So comforting. Oh.
Wow. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So we're about, it's 9:06 here. So we've gone over our time, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Terry, for sharing your story tonight. And
you're welcome.
Really, really fascinating. It was amazing. So much. I mean, we could probably be here for another hour and a half, just, talking about all of your experiences and asking questions and relating. And so I'm just so happy that you are part of our community and that you have had all these experiences, and it's just beautiful. And I'm so happy to hear that you're on the front line for bringing in the positive aspects of ET contact.
Yeah.
I feel like, yay.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. This is part of our mission. I think all of us here.
I agree. And I really appreciate you letting me tell my story, and maybe that will inspire others to get out there and start telling their family and friends too. Yes. And other people.
Yes, absolutely. One day it's just going to be the norm. Like people are just going to be like, yeah, we know ETs are real and they're here and they're interdimensional, and some of them, blah, blah, blah. But right now it's not so much that way, but I think we're getting there slowly. But the more of us that come together and talk about these things, and that's why I love IANS, which is International Near-Death Association, something like that. But anyway, you guys have heard of IANS. They have sharing groups too, where people come together and they share not only their near-death experiences, but their spiritually transformative experiences, which are all connected to this UFO ET experiences.
Right.
And that's powerful when people get together that are experiences and share, and people that don't necessarily think they're experiencers, but they're very drawn to this subject. And then they find out, oh, wait, I am an experiencer, So these groups are starting to come together now. And there's also another one called Spiritual Awakenings International. If anyone's interested, they have sharing groups also. So you may want to check those out. I've found beautiful, beautiful people and beautiful connections through those groups. And so we're getting out there and we're talking now, the experiencers. So I feel so positive about the future and what this is all leading to. And all of you that are here tonight are part of this, and it's just really exciting. So thank you so much, Terry. And
you're welcome. I'm glad to be a part of this, and it's great to have some brothers and sisters to be able to share this with. It's awesome.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thanks for having the courage to speak up.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure, and thank you guys so much for all your kind words and just for listening, and I really appreciate it. And let's make this happen.
Yeah. All right, so I think what we're going to do from now on, we're going to have it on the second Tuesday of the month, okay? And then I'm going to start announcing when we're going to have our sharing groups, so we can get together and share our experiences. We can share about, and those I won't record. We can just share about how being an experiencer is, you know, affecting us, or if, you know, there's something that's come up for us lately that we want to share. And I think it'll be a really nice way to get together on a regular basis too. So I'll start sending emails out for those. It's called Safe Space Sharing Group. So, all right.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right, guys. I'll
All
see
right.
you all soon.
Take care.
Have a beautiful
Thank you,
month.
Terry.
Bye.
I'll see you
Thank
soon.
you.
Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your week. Yeah.
Bye. So welcome everybody to UFO ET Experiencers group. And we're all here tonight. We have a beautiful speaker. Her name is Zisu.
Bye.
Bye-bye.